Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today's Wildcard Sunday. Actually, it's not because I shoot videos before that, but I've pre-ordered this Ronin Rising from Frank Miller a few weeks ago and it just came in today. So fresh, hot off the presses. So I figured I'd do kind of an unboxing kind of review where we kind of look at it together for this Wildcard Sunday. That's what Wildcard Sunday is for. Different stuff, so definitely going to go with that because it just came in. I'm pretty excited about it. Figured I'd unbox it with you. Can't mess this up. Don't want to edit this video, so I've only get one shot at the opening. So here we go. This one's still shrink wrapped. Took it out of the box, obviously, and going to use these handy dandy scissors now to cut her open. So give me a sec, see if I can do that right. Oh wow, surprisingly good tool here. All right, just need that little snip, and I can open that book up. There we go. I don't know about you guys, but one of the first things I do with a book like this is smell it. It smells of print chemicals. So there we go. I feel like there's something behind there, so let me throw this waste away for now and see what we got on the back. Okay. So, I guess these are just ads about the actual comic book and all these comics that are coming out from Frank Miller Productions, or Abrams Comic Arts, I guess in this case. Is this to replace... It's got quotes and stuff, right? So, praise for Frank Miller's Ronin Rising. A worthy sequel to an already legendary tale. Just when you think it can't get more epic, it does. Praise for Frank Miller's Ronin, the original. His brutal yet elegant noir renderings and thoroughly uncompromising attitude make Frank Miller one of the most distinctive voices in comics. Entertainment Weekly. Yeah, Frank Miller's not getting quotes from Entertainment Weekly these days, right? This is old stuff from back in the 80s for Ronin, and, you know, Dark Knight a little bit later probably got a lot of quotes like that too. Beautiful, ambitious, and complex Rolling Stone when it comes to the original Ronin. So what does the back of this book actually look like? Kind of curious now with that. Okay, so was that some sort of oversight or something? And then they threw it in after, or just an advertising page, I guess. Well, that's not what interests us the most, right? What interests us is this book. So there you go. Some blah blah marketing. Let's look at this actual book. So before we open up, what I do know about this is that Philip Tan was the original artist, and there's a lot of backlash. Well, okay, over the original artist, finishing artist, over Frank Miller thumbnails or layouts, I guess. We may find out with this book exactly the level of that. I think there's, you know, some cool, interesting back matter, which is mostly why I got this book. So I'm hoping for that. Even though I was interested in like more modern Frank Miller artwork. So other than covers and stuff he's been doing. And then there was a bit of backlash. And then so what ended up happening is within that miniseries, Frank Miller actually did do a couple of issues himself, and I guess finished up his thumbnails and his layout. So listen, I'll stop talking about it. We'll open up the book to find out. I like how this is a sticker, so you have the option to, I guess, take it off. I don't think anyone ever will, right? So, yeah. I always think when you get just a big splotch of one color here, I mean, it works, but it's kind of lost, a lost chance to put some cool artwork in there. This is very Frank Miller-ish. So credits: Frank Miller, Philip Tan, Daniel Enriquez, and John Workman. Abrams Comic Arts, New York. So they're kind of, you know, this new company, well, been around for a few years now, who's kind of into high-end stuff, or, you know, high-end creators or whatever. I know they did pretty sure they did the Alex Ross Fantastic Four book, which I thought was awesome. So hopefully this is cool as well. So we've got forward, prelude, all the chapters, extra at 144, covers, layouts by Frank Miller. So we'll get to see some of those. So Frank Miller's Ronin Rising numbers 2 to 5, and concept art by Philip Tan. All right. Well, again, I'm opening this up right now. You've seen it, so I'm not going to go through this. This is Jim Lee talking about Frank Miller and how awesome he is and how awesome Ronin is. I'll read that at some point on my own, and I will read the story. But again, it's an unboxing, so we're just having a first quick glance, quick look at the artwork. and seeing what it's like. So, interiors, we are on issue 1. Philip Tan, I gotta say, is doing an awesome job. I think his rendering is great. He's probably working, I would assume, on like digital Procreate or something, the way his art is here, although I could be wrong. Yeah, I think I'm right. There's some telltale signs. Sometimes when the textures, like this is clearly, there's no way you can hand draw this. I don't know if you could see it on the camera. Also, you know, I had to pull the camera very far back. Whoops, I was not centered. There we go. Didn't miss much on the left anyways. Where was I going with that? Anyways. Sorry, I'm a little kind of taken in by the artwork here. We got the familiar Ronin kind of technology and stuff. Obviously, because these are done on Frank Miller layouts, I can kind of see it here. But, I mean, Philip Tan, I do feel, really does make it his own here. It's got a bit of a, almost like Jim Lee and Frank Miller mixed together, if I could venture to say that. Got a cool kind of sequence here where we see flashbacks to the original Ronin series. These are definitely like some pretty big moments in that series. Obviously, I've read the original Ronin, right? Oh, okay. So it's not even chapter 1. This is basically just kind of a prequel, real quick prequel to get us up to speed, I guess, if you haven't read Ronin, right? So here's where I feel like we get a bit of Jim Lee kind of over top of Frank Miller. The finish is kind of a bit that West Coast kind of look. A bit of manga looks to it too, as well. I mean, Philip Tan did start off early as kind of the secondary artist there and some image books back in the day, but he's really coming into his own, I gotta say. His art's pretty cool looking here. Again, I do think it's digital, but nothing wrong with that. He's doing like great stuff. Wow, look at this. I mean, he's really making these layouts his own, I gotta say. Like, he's picking his own textures and stuff like this kind of thing here. Obviously digital, right? Computer's manipulating that shape. But he uses it well, I gotta say. It's just very striking. And yeah, so originally people complained, like I kind of complained. I was like, oh, I'd rather see some Frank Miller artwork, but I gotta say this is pretty stellar stuff. Although, you know, this character is from the original Ronin series, and all of a sudden she's, you know, running around with this kid on her back. Obviously very reminiscent of Lone Wolf and Cub, if you know anything about Frank Miller. You know, he's very inspired by that, and a lot of Ronin comes from that, or you could almost say mostly swiped. A lot of it is swiped from Lone Wolf and Cub. Back when Frank Miller did Ronin, the general public didn't know about these series here in America, right? So it was seen as very original and stuff. Now with hindsight and knowing about the manga series, which I have the whole collection here, the Dark Horse books, well, you know, you understand where all that's coming from. I've said it before in the last few reviews. I forget which one exactly, but, you know, everything that's old is new again, right? Oh, man, Philip Tan is just killing it here. This artwork is awesome. Just, yeah, controlled hatching. He's usually using those digital tools, like, to full effect. He's doing some negative hatching, right, in the white and stuff. All the texture on this demon character. The way he's interpreted Frank Miller's, you know, odd kind of head shapes, horns that are coming out of the character. I forget his name. From the original Ronin series. The way he's using the white here, the negative space over costume, no detail. I think that's clever. Kind of doing it here too. Here I think because it's pulled far back, right? I don't think he's going to do it everywhere, but it works really well. Yeah, I mean, he's adding in just a few lines, but it's mostly negative space. Very cool, very graphic, makes her stand out, right? The contrasts are just amazing. Again, I can kind of see the Frank Miller layouts, you know, the basic kind of composition and stuff, but man, Tan is just killing it here. A little jarring on this page where I feel like less gray. There's some here, but a little jarring from page to page. Then we get back into the same kind of, close to the same percentages of white, black, and gray. He's really adept at using those across all these pages. Like, I feel like Tan is just adding so much to the artwork. Hopefully, yeah, we can see near the end there a layout page by Frank Miller that Tan then drew over. That's really what I'm interested in seeing, right? Man, this, like, had I known, I wouldn't have complained, and maybe, you know, if people hadn't complained, maybe Philip Tan would have drawn the whole miniseries. But man, he's just, yeah, killing it here. There's a mix of like Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, Spawn, Greg Capullo kind of stuff with the Demon, right? Like, it's just, and you know, that Sin City Frank Miller kind of layout here. Wow, that's beautiful. So chapter 2 is also drawn by Tan. But we should talk about the format as well, right? So Miller, kind of the first time he did a similar format to this was 300. So I guess, you know, he enjoys it. I think it's just kind of a regular comic book page turned on its side, right? Horizontally. I'm going to assume this is maybe drawn on 11x17, but Frank Miller recently has been known to draw on an even bigger paper and draw really big. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with the format. It's interesting, but it's not too jarring. It's a good way to present, you know, there aren't too many panels per page. A lot of it are splash pages with a few insert panels and stuff. So it really does lend itself to epic artwork, which we're definitely getting here from Philip Tan. Jesus. Yeah. As much as I'm going to be, you know, here for the Frank Miller enjoying that, I mean, this is something else, I gotta say. I hope you're seeing what I'm seeing here. Again, I had to pull the camera pretty far away to get, this is the furthest away I've ever pulled it for a book, to get the widescreen kind of open shot that we got here. Hopefully still in frame. I think I adjusted that properly. Oh man, like, again, these digital effects here are so, like, other than a few spots where they kind of stand out a little bit, it's just still so very organic, the way he's using all these textures and digital tricks and stuff. Just amazing stuff. I like here this little, like, the glass becomes an insert panel, and, you know, they use the gray here to contrast from the white. Just really good stuff. Really good design work. Now, is that Tan or Frank Miller? I don't know, because this definitely feels, again, like the basic structure is Miller, but all this detail and stuff is just not Miller's usual kind of aesthetic. Like this, man. Look at that. Again, this is something more in line, you know, this white on black and stuff. Something to me reminiscent of like 90s Spawn with Greg Capullo and Danny Miki inking him, or even Dwayne Turner on Curse of the Spawn, right? That's kind of what I'm seeing here. But just like, this is stellar Image Comics aesthetic, I guess is what I'd say. Like Image Comics aesthetic, but on proper proportions, anatomy, well, proper. Some of it's exaggerated, obviously, but just this person is, you know, masters drawing characters from all sorts of different angles. To me, this is Philip Tan is almost like a better Jim Lee, is how I'd put it. You know, a less stiff Jim Lee. I've always found, I like Jim Lee, but I always found that like his figures tend to be stiff and posy, I guess is the way I could describe it. And here it's like we're getting Jim Lee with a bit of a Spawn kind of sheen and aesthetic on top, and just very energetic movement in the drawing, you know, not stiff, the opposite of stiff. Like, look at that. Look at the movement in these pages, right? And I mean, a certain amount of credit goes to Frank Miller for the layouts, yes, and how much we'll see once we get to the extras, and I can kind of compare, and I can't wait for that. But like 10 is, I gotta believe he's adding so much, you know, movement really with the way he's interpreting Miller stuff and hatching and stuff. It's just, yeah, again, it's that extra bit of like kind of manga vibe that's mixed in that makes it very dynamic, gives it really good movement. And I mean, the size of the book, the images, it's you can't help but be epic, right? Yeah. Nice kind of Frank Miller repetition sequence that we know from him. Looks really cool, though. So is this the physical manifestation now of all that technology? What was her name in that original Ronin series? She was like the mainframe computer originally. She had a lady's name. Yeah, see, like to me, this is almost like Jim Lee, but already just more form and movement and volume and depth. Just, yeah. Good stuff. So chapter 3, still Philip Tan? Okay. I thought Miller, I think he does 2 chapters, so I'm going to assume maybe the next one is Miller. I mean, there's not much more I can say about it, but just kind of, you know, give you a little preview of the artwork here. Got some Geiger influence, it seems like, here, right? Yeah, I know where Frank Miller's coming from with his designs and stuff. They're reminiscent of Ronin and some stuff he did in Dark Knight 2. I can kind of see that with the underlying structure. But I feel like Philip Tan is definitely throwing in some Geiger kind of vibes and textures all over the place. If you're not sure, Geiger is the artist who kind of designed the original Alien design, right? The kind of biomechanics and you know, the kind of detailing and textures that they would use for those creatures, right? I think a lot of this is reminiscent of that. So this is a Frank Miller trope, right? This repetition of the character here. Feels a little boring to do it that long. Okay, not so bad. I was hoping there weren't so many pages of that. But yeah, just all these incredible textures that Tan is creating here. Amazing. Very painstaking. I can imagine this must have taken a long time. Each of these pages is probably, if not a few days, I would think, at least a few days. Definitely Frank Miller with the car here. Well done. Feels maybe a little more kind of light boxed, but not too jarring from the rest of the artwork. You know, we've been seeing lots of just kind of fantasy, surrealist technology, and all of a sudden to throw in, you know, an actual object from reality can be a little bit jarring. But I think it works here pretty well. It's an interesting choice. It's Frank Miller. Yeah, stellar artwork. Like all this mech detail here. Just wow. Amazing. Very intricate. Probably took a while to draw. I'd be patient. Alright, now I definitely see, you know, the same layout but with the Miller aesthetic, right, that he's got right now, which is actually not kind of that Sin City Chiaroscuro thing. It's just more volume representative, I guess, or clear line, or, you know, there's not really a lot of modeling going on either with shadows or hatching or anything. It's just a pretty straight line. Just every once in a while with the black shapes, it's reminiscent of old school Frank Miller, right? Kind of a black mass with some white lines on the inside. Yeah, so that's exactly what I was thinking. The layouts are going to be similar, but much bolder and simpler in the Miller version. But it's different. The inking in the back here, you know, did Miller ink this? How does that work exactly? I'd like to know who... I don't think Miller inked this. Is that possible? I mean, I don't know how jarring... It's jarring as far as the aesthetic is somewhat different, pretty different, not quite as detailed as before, but I guess because it's the same layouts and kind of composition, it's still pretty steady, you know, consistent on that level. But I do not feel like this is Frank Miller inking. I got to get to the bottom of this. We'll look at the credits again. Maybe I missed something. Okay, so looking now, the Frank Miller stuff, comparing it with what I saw with Philip Tan, it's almost a situation to me, I guess, if I had to sum it up, of one or the other. You know what I mean? Like, now that I've seen the Philip Tan artwork that I think is great, and I'm looking at the Frank Miller stuff, and that's kind of, you know, I still really appreciate the composition, the layout, the boldness, right? I like both for different reasons, I guess, both styles of artwork. It's almost like now, I mean, it's, you know, it's 2024, it's the internet age, man, we can, you know, AI can do anything, or it's about to, and I feel like we're just getting very selfish. But if I was thinking very selfishly, I would say, I want a version of this whole miniseries drawn by Philip Tan, and then I want a whole version of this miniseries drawn by Frank Miller, and I would literally buy both. So here I get a mix of both, I guess, right? So you get a bit of of Philip Tan and a bit of Frank Miller, but again, never satisfied as a comic consumer, it seems. So you know what? I'm just going to shut up about that and stick to reviewing the artwork and appreciating the fact that I can get a kind of Ronin, sequel, partly drawn by Frank Miller, who's, the original guy, and partly drawn by a super amazing artist who really, pushes the artwork and brings it somewhere else. Yeah, the inking, like, this just doesn't seem... The cover seemed like Frank Miller, but this here does not. I feel like there's some digital inking going on probably here. Yeah, that would make sense, right? A different texture for the hair that's being used here. So it feels like digital inking. Would it, is it possible? I'll just say it before I get to finding out, and that way, I've put it out there. Is it possible that this is maybe Philip Tan inking Frank Miller? That would make sense. It's digital inking. The gray values and stuff are similar. This is definitely digital, right? You can see it. And then you get some fingerprint stuff, which is probably digital as well now. You can probably get a brush that does fingerprints. Pretty sure that exists. Yeah, so that's what I'm starting to think. I don't think this is Miller inking at all. Or maybe inking part of some stuff, like this stuff, right? It has kind of very reminiscent of Frank Miller type inking, but there's some sort of assist going on there, if that's what it is. But yeah, just storytelling wise, not too jarring. Still some great layouts. But yeah, definitely just comparing, the simpler, bolder look of Miller tends to be a bit flatter, and then Philip Tan just makes everything just bounce, and the volumes are just so obvious and cool. So much depth to the artwork, right? The opposite of flat here. So many levels and layers. Oh wow, now we get a double page splash here. So this guy, to me, as I'm going through and I see this kid character here, he just reminds me of kind of, seems like he's inspired from just most either Akira or Dragon Ball, right? A bit of both maybe, but the power set and everything, it seems kind of swipey to a Dragon Ball type characters. Not that I'm that well versed in that type of manga, but it's, even to me it seems kind of obvious. So obviously Frank Miller's developed this kind of repetition idea that he uses in his own books he's using here. So I guess this kind of mirrors what was happening to Ronin before. Hopefully it doesn't last for too many pages as well. See, that's the thing, as beautiful as these pages are, I feel like as an artist, after a few, you would thankfully, once you get here and you can move on to something else, you would get bored of that after maybe 2, right? And then you got to draw maybe 3 more. That's a lot. Oh, great. Yeah, Tan is just kicking ass on this. This book is worth it for his artwork alone, right? And you're probably more buying it for the Frank Miller, right? Because he's more the name, I guess. But man, Philip Tan is just kicking ass. They must have paid him really well for this. But Abrams books, I think, if they're working with Alex Ross and stuff, that means, they've got good money to pay their artists properly. This is probably a very good gig, and that's why the artwork is so stellar. Really put work into it. Probably had a long deadline and got paid very well. And if he did get paid very well, I certainly hope he did, because the work definitely shows that he put tons and tons of effort into it. I mean, again, this is probably more an art book than anything else, because just looking at it, I feel like we're in the same setting. They're both kind of... I'm not reading it, so I'm supposing from the images they're both kind of stuck in the technology, the Ronin technology, right? Stuck within the core, and somehow they're going to have to get out. We've got another, oh, that's interesting. So we got a Philip Tan cover, but we got Frank Miller artwork on the inside. So once again, stuck in the machine, right? Now, we've been here for a few issues, so I don't know what the reading experience is going to be like here. Again, visually, it's awesome. Jarring in the aesthetic a little bit from Philip Tan to Frank Miller, but not jarring in as far as the composition goes. So at least there's that consistency. And again, I think Miller's doing a pretty good job. I like the art. It's, again, it is reminiscent of Sin City. It's maybe not as simplified as some of his more recent stuff in his cover work. Nipples, that's hilarious. But, maybe going for a little bit more cartoony in his basic style, and maybe just slightly manga, Well, that's cool. Yeah, like I don't think he's slouching anyway, but again, I want to know what the inking situation is. That's what's really going to tell me what's going on here. Those weird, funky Frank Miller poses, right? That work, right? Very blocky. Yeah, I think I'll repeat what I said. I think I would enjoy this whole series by Frank Miller and also enjoy the whole series by Philip Tan. I will say overall, they're both interesting. Oh, and that's the end apparently. They're both very interesting. Yeah, these are not effects Frank Miller typically uses, so definitely some digital help. Hopefully we find out what's going on there. But yeah, I would be down for a Frank Miller book, down for Philip Tan, but I think I gotta say out of the two, again, I'm enjoying the Frank Miller, really enjoying the Philip Tan and what he did. So this feels more, right, like Frank Miller and his inking. I could like totally believe that this was probably inked by Frank Miller here. So what are we looking at? Frank Miller's Ronin Rising #3 variant cover pencils by Frank Miller, so just the pencils. Frank Miller's Ronin Rising #1 wrap cover by Frank Miller, so stands to believe, I guess, that this would be inked by Frank Miller, but there's another signature underneath, so maybe the grays and the digital kind of elements that are added in are by this guy. Hopefully we can find out exactly what's going on there. Because again, it's signed by Miller and some other guy, but they just say by Frank Miller, which I think sucks for the other guy. I mean, he's putting some work in there too. So this feels like Philip Tan without any kind of Frank Miller layout underneath. At least I would assume. And yeah, even though I know there's digital stuff going on, it's just credited to Frank Miller. There's the other guy's name keep appearing. There's no signature on this one. Got some, wow, Frank Miller really like pushing it out here with all these wires and stuff, and very kind of parallel. Looks cool. That's some great stuff here. All right, so here's what we want to see, right? Layouts by Frank Miller. Yeah, because I remember when I saw, before it was, the series was printed, you'd look at the layouts and you're like, well, I mean, it's pretty much all the work is done already. To me, layouts would have been just the pencil line that you can see underneath, but he came in and just, added basic lines and things to finish it off. It was almost or close to his already final style, right? Yeah, very distinctive layouts. What we saw before. Just pregnant, eh? Interesting. Yeah, these are pretty damn complete, I gotta say. Okay, so I'm gonna put a little piece of paper here, and we'll come back to this one and compare it with the Philip Tan page. Because that one I distinctly remember. That'll be a good one to see what the differences are. Because I mean, if I look at this artwork, I do recognize most of what I saw in the Frank Miller sections. Again, I'm just wondering how the inking was done, because I really don't feel like it was him. I feel like whoever finished it off took these, right, these layouts, and digitally inked them. Which, nothing wrong with that, but let's credit the guy who did. He's adding texture, mechanics. He's adding in detail. He's adding in grays and, yeah, just a lot of digital elements. Okay, so try to go a little faster, see if there's anything else. Pretty much what I expected from, the Frank Miller layouts. Is that how it's going to end? And then we get concept designs by Philip Tan. Okay, so kind of sketchier work, but looks really cool. Still some very good stuff. I guess this is maybe all done by hand rather than digital. That's what I would assume here from what I see from the line and stuff. It's a little more kind of shaky and organic. Pretty cool though. Oh, and that's it, eh? So, okay, I'm going to have to go back and look at credits. Because I'm curious, and, oh man, how am I going to find that page with the car? I don't remember exactly where it was. See if I can do that quickly while I talk and rattle off stuff. Where are you, car? Yeah, these repetitive sequences here. So if it's not in this issue, it's in the one after Miller, so I'll have to go in the other direction. These pages just are kind of heavy and hard to turn. Yeah, I think I might have misjudged where that shot was. Maybe further into chapter 5. And you know what, if I don't find it, well, that'll just be too bad. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to find it, I don't think. Let me just finish this one. Is it in chapter 6? Alright, well, we're gonna stop wasting time or else this review is gonna go on forever. So, just gonna try to answer my question about credits once again. There's the credit page. So that's basically it, eh? Frank Miller, Philip Tan. So, okay, we got the other name that I guess wasn't pointed out anywhere else. Daniel Enriquez. So if we look at that artwork with Frank Miller at the end, pretty sure that was signed FM, and that looks like an H and an R, so that would make sense. Okay, so Daniel Enriquez would be the person, I guess, doing the digital inking on top of Frank Miller. Well, there you go. That answers my question. Well, there you have it, guys. Ronin Rising. Official unboxing today on Big Baby Reviews Wildcard Sunday. It's actually Tuesday. It's the day of its release, but of course videos come out a little bit later. So if anyone else out there ordered it, got their copy, let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any answers to my questions, let me know as well. Thank you so much. If you're subscribed to the channel, I appreciate the loyalty and you're still checking out the videos. If you are watching the videos but not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button below. It really helps out the channel, helps get us out there to other people, like-minded people who are into the same kind of stuff we are. And I just want to thank everyone for watching and hope everyone has an awesome day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.